Fresh is the word.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, K Fresh. This is episode number 3. Before we get started, we'd just like to thank everybody for all the listens. It's been a great launch of the podcast. Getting a lot of great feedback, and we got a lot of cool things in the works. For this episode, we're finally getting into some wrestling. My guest this week is a wrestler out of Michigan. He goes by the name of Hakim Zane. First caught him at a recent XICW event at the Imperial House. He did a cage match with Orlando Christopher. He ended up losing the match and dropping the belt, but it was one hell of a match anyways. I was able to catch up with him at the next XICW event at the Ritz in Morn, and we chopped it up about, music and wrestling, talked a lot of hip-hop, It was cool to, really kick it with him. So let's get to the interview with Hakim Zane.
Yeah, like I was saying, first time I saw you wrestling was at the Imperial House, and still cage match, and I was like, instantly I'm like, oh shit, he's coming out to a Just Blaze joint.
Yeah.
Wait, which joint was that?
Tough Love, Young Guns.
Yeah.
I just love the chorus. It starts off right away, and then the chorus is, I do whatever it takes to find a way, and the beat just kicks in right away. And I love Just Blaze. Like, I actually used to come out to a couple times when I first started. I was coming out to Saigon. I can't remember the name of it. Come On Baby. I was coming out to instrumental of that, and then I'd come out to when Just Blaze did that Nike commercial. I did that because that was ridiculous. Just the beat is so good, and I remember coming out to that. But everyone loved the Tough Love one, so I stick to that. And the whole I do whatever it takes to find a way. It's just perfect for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna do whatever it takes to find a way to win. So it's great.
Yeah, and I saw you liked it on Facebook. Like, I posted the match that you had. In the middle of it, I hear you yell something. I'm like, I know that. So I had to I'm like, okay, Google it. And I'm like, oh shit, that was Wu Gambino. So
Yeah, I'm like, oh. Boy. I actually use that as my catchphrase. I said there's a whole bunch of stars. Everyone wants to be a star in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
I want to be a star. I want to be a star. I want to be the star.
Yeah.
So I'm the sun. So I got that. I was like, I remember Method Man said it, and I call my brother sun because he shines like one. I was like, man, I'm the sun, and just like the sun, everything revolves around me. So what's a good? I said, you know what? My mother calls me sun because I shine like one. Yeah. And so I say that at the end of every promo. I say it in the middle of the match. And you're the first person to catch that I was from Wu Gambino's. No one else can catch that, but that's where I got it from.
Right. Who are some of your favorite music artists to listen to?
Well, obviously Wu-Tang. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I sent you that picture of that shirt. My buddy Frankie the Face made me that. I can't wait to get that out. I'm going to get these black trunks with that yellow in the back, just really simple, so it looks like that Wu logo. But I love, old school wise, I'm a big old school fan. I love anybody from, like NWA and stuff like that. But stuff like BDP, Boogie Down. I love big KRS-One fan. LL back in the day, I loved his stuff, all the stuff from the 80s. I'm an 80s baby, so I grew up during that whole time.
Right.
And then a lot of new stuff. I'm trying to get into some new stuff, underground stuff. I just heard, I was familiar with J Electronica before. My buddy just let me hear Exhibit C yesterday, which blew my mind. I forgot how good the dude was. And then I picked up Razkaz, Apollo Brown's Blasphemy. Oh God, I love it.
Yeah, Apollo's a homie of mine, man. I've known him since before he was Apollo Brown.
Really?
Yeah, back when I was living in Royal Oak, I had a few roommates, and he used to work with one of my roommates, another hip hop artist named Finale. And he used to come by all the time, and he was just starting the Apollo Brown thing when he'd come over.
Dude, his stuff is good, man. I loved it. That Razkaz album, those two together, I play it from beginning to end, every track. I have it in my car, and I love it, man. I love it. And then Sky Zoo, big fan of Sky Zoo. I love the Apollo Brown's version of Ghostface, 12 Reasons to Die.
Right.
I love that. I like the first one. Was it Adrian Young that did the first one? I liked that, but then I heard Apollo Brown's, and it was just, to me, it was more Wu style, and I absolutely fell in love with it. My buddy down in Milwaukee usually tells me who to hit up. He was on Kendrick Lamar, before Kendrick really got big, he was, you know, listening to him. Before Lupe got big, when Lupe was doing like the Food and Liquor, like mixtapes and stuff like that, I was listening to that, him. You'll have to educate me on what's hot now, man, because sometimes I'll hear stuff, I won't know who it is, I'll just play it.
Right.
And I can't do radio.
Me neither.
I can't do that. No offense to those guys, but it's so formulated and just, it's not for me. I gotta try to keep my ear to the ground and see what's hot on the streets. But as of late, you know, I'm behind on a lot of stuff.
There's still dope shit coming out on the underground, independent labels, and a lot of like dope stuff coming out of Detroit even, you know.
Right.
It's out there. It's just not in your face, you know, anymore.
My buddy Adam Santoya, he just moved down here. He makes beats. He's really good. It wasn't Freddie Fox, but somebody picked up something of his. Man, who was it? And it wasn't Freddie Fox. It was somebody. I can't remember who it was, but picked up one of his beats. And my boy Jacinto, he's out here now, and they do their own thing. And they're I don't know if his brother's name was Ness North or something like that. I can't remember his name, but they're good, and I've known them for years. And we used to freestyle and stuff back in the day. We used to have the karaoke machine, so we'd have the beat playing, you know, we'd have the beat playing, and then we'd freestyle over it. You know, it was all garbage back then, but we loved it, man. We thought oh man, it's so hot. And
that's how everybody used to do it back then.
And then it was like the MTV Music Generator. We'd make the beats off of that because it would let you sample stuff. It was like one of the only things that would let you sample. So we would take, we'd burn stuff online, and we'd take beats, and then we'd chop it up and sample it. We were taking stuff from like Kill Bill, Streets of Rage, and if we had the quality that we do now with those beats, that was pretty good. Some of that stuff was really good, man.
Right.
It was really good stuff. So there's a lot of talented people out there. It's kind of like wrestling, independent wrestling. You see all these guys that are in WWE, stuff like that, and they become well known, but there's so much talent that will never make it to the big stage, and it's a shame.
Right.
Because there's guys out there that could be on TV right now, and they'll just never get that shot. So.
And that's the reason why I'm doing the podcast that I'm doing, is because music and wrestling is something that really I have fun watching, being a part of, whatever. But I do see those parallels between the wrestling industry and the music industry. I know, like, I remember even coming to here, like the Ritz, like 15 years ago, and going to like high school gyms for shows, and still all these smaller, companies do, still, have them in the same place. But I feel like now, as compared to 15 years ago, the matches are better.
Yeah.
The athleticism of these wrestlers, there's a wide amount of just talent, even at the small companies these days,
It is. People are hungry. That's the main thing, and that's kind of what separates. Like, you see it in music, and you see it in wrestling. You see it in anything in life, where it's when you're trying to make it. If you have a passion for it, you're hungry, and you put everything into that. And the only way to stay successful is to stay hungry. So once you make it, whether it's music, wrestling, whatever, you have to stay hungry, and don't forget what brought you to the dance. Because you see a lot of guys, they make it, and then everything is just almost like they're phoning it in. Right. You got to remember what brought you to the dance, and that's why, now wrestling had that surge in the 80s. It was big, and it died down in the 90s, and then in '98 it got NWO and the Attitude Era. It had that surge, and then it kind of died down, and then CM Punk kind of helped bring that back, and then like the stuff like wrestling kind of blew up. WWE's getting Sports Center stuff, you know, and it's true, because people they want to say stuff about wrestling all the time, but there's like 80% of the people out there that couldn't even do what we do.
Right.
I mean? And the thing is, you have these guys now that the psychology of wrestling is different, the pace is different, and today's athlete is different. It's not everyone, but there's like 90% of people want to be in shape, you know what I mean? Or maybe 85. But that transcends into now wrestling. So you see these guys, I would say like myself, Jake something, that we're meatheads. We want to be in the gym, but we want to translate that. We want to look like $1 million out in the ring, and we're hungry. So I can guarantee tonight, when Jake something and I go in that ring, it could be 20 people here, it could be 120 people here, it could be 1,000 people here. We're gonna put on the best match we can for whatever, because we want to be the best. And that's I think that's just independent. Whatever profession you're doing, is because you're hungry and you have that passion. So, and that's why it transcends into wrestling as well.
Right, there was definitely a time in wrestling where maybe it was just kind of like there's a lot of brawlers in wrestling, and then there was definitely a time when there was a lot of drug use in wrestling.
Yeah.
But a lot of that has been cleaned up, and a lot of people have seen the deaths that's loomed over wrestling all these years, you know.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, having a healthier lifestyle, and they're realizing they can, you know, do it better.
I think a lot of it, it's funny because again, it's like we joke about it, but sometimes you go out and you throw down a couple, and some of the guys we just party like rock stars, you know, and to use that, and it's back then it was big in the 80s, and it was like that too. Like I remember watching stuff like a Motley Crue, you know, and the hair metal bands, and they were partying, drinking, and even 80s wrestling was like that too. It was the same thing, you know what I mean? And it's a little bit better nowadays. Like you said, you saw the guys that did party super hard. What's up, brother?
Hi, how's it going? Hey, what up?
They partied really hard, and it over time it took its toll on them. So you gotta if you want to be in the business, in my opinion, in any business, you gotta wrestle and party for longevity. You know what I mean? You can't overdo it unless you're one of those guys that's just a tank that can do that. You know, by all means, more power to you.
Right. Yeah. Back in the '80s, you had metal bands that were, you know, doing all sorts of coke and partying all night. Yeah. Now you have metal bands that are all vegans.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. My buddy Nick, he played with the Swellers. They're like a pretty well-known punk band, and you figure punk, I always think of the Sex Pistols, just like, you know, throwing beer bottles and stuff. No, I live with him, and he's like a vegan, you know. He's like this well-built, jacked vegan guy, and he's all about health, but they're that whole punk message. And it's just funny how things change, you know.
Right. I just interviewed Doyle from the Misfits.
Oh, really?
And he's like a total vegan now.
Yeah, that dude's like super jacked. Like, I saw it, I was like, geez, this guy's ripped, man. That's cool, man. Like, I don't judge anybody, because I'll definitely go get wasted, you know what I'm saying? I'll get drunk, and then there's days like I'm mostly about eating right and lifting. On the weekend is my party time, so, you know, I try to split it into two. If you have fun, just be careful. You know, I can't judge anybody.
Throughout time, you know, especially, you know, someone like you, and I saw it really starting to happen in WCW days when they had the really strong cruiserweight division.
Yeah.
With Malenko and Benoit, Rey Mysterio, all those guys. When it comes to that more, you know, cruiserweight, junior heavyweight division, what sort of psychology goes in the ring when you have kind of like this fast-paced thing going on?
I think you have to, one, you got to be in some type of shape, and you got to have some type of athleticism, because if you're putting on a match and you're going at that type of pace, you have to be able to keep up. I've gotten blown up in the ring before, and it's like, Jesus, man, it's so bad. Like last year, I didn't do any cardio because I try to put on more size. Yeah. And so I like to talk a lot of shit in my matches. I'm always, yeah. And if you've ever yelled and screamed at somebody, you know how much that blows you up. So I'll be blown up, you know. I'm like, God damn, I got to slow it down. You have to be able to go. You got to be able to go in that ring. Those are my biggest influences right there as far as pro wrestling. The Benoits, the Guerreros, Mysterio. Because when I saw them, I always wanted to be a wrestler, but always thought I had to be over 6 feet tall, 200 some odd pounds.
Right.
When I saw these guys come in, I was like, man, I can do this, you know. And then it took me years before I actually had the funds to go training. But when I did, if you look at my work, you know, you'll see a lot of that influence on them. In this sport, if you want to go at that pace, you have to have, one, a passion for it, and two, you got to be in somewhat an athlete in pretty good shape to go at that type of pace.
Wow, what a catch!
Got that game going on.
Right. Going back to, how did you first get into wrestling?
Way back. My earliest memory is my dad was watching it, and it was in the 80s. It was the Road Warriors versus the Koloffs in a Russian chain match, and immediately these guys already looked like superheroes. So I'm like, whoa, you know. And Mad Max was big at the time, so these guys are called the Road Warriors. So I'm like, these guys are awesome. And then I remember, I don't even know if that was the first match I saw, but that was like my first memory, early memory. And then I remember Hogan. You know, Hogan was huge, and Hogan was a real life superhero. If you were a kid, you watched wrestling, you loved Hogan.
Yeah.
You know, and then Warrior came along, and Macho Man. So, and it just grew from there. I fell in love with it, and I always was doing something. I used to have a tape recorder. My mom had a tape recorder, and I'd wrestle this gray bear as a kid, and I would call the matches while I wrestled it, and then I'd cut promos afterwards, you know. And then in high school, we'd sneak up in the mezzanine, and we'd wrestle up there and cut promos on each other. And then it turned into wrestling in our basement, but making it like, you know, as real as we could and professional as we could. And then we got a ring in the backyard, and then somebody hooked up with somebody that we can go train. And then I went and trained, and I tried to go to 98 when I got out of high school. I wanted to go to Al Snow's school down in Lima. Didn't have the money. It wasn't until, and then I was going to go to the House of Truth, but I was working a full-time job, so I didn't have time to go. And then I met up with this guy, Xavier Justice, and I got to go once a week. And I did that for like 6 months. And then I got trained there, and then I would go to the House of Truth to tighten up my game, and then, you know, just learn from all my peers and just went from there. I've always been into wrestling though, man. I mean, always. I think I always will be. It's just something that stuck with me. I love it.
What was one of the first things you learned when you started training?
One of the first things I learned was how rough it is. Like, it's no joke, man. That first body slam, that first bump you take, I mean, I had a headache. I was beat up and bruised. You hit the ropes for the first time. People don't realize that, how intense professional wrestling training is, man. And when you get in the ring, I learned that it was no game. You know, I knew that getting into it. I didn't think it was going to be easy, but I learned just how hard it is and how much you have to want this in order for you to succeed. So that was the first thing I learned, you know, to dig deep.
Dig deep. What has been some of the companies that you've wrestled with thus far?
A lot of, obviously, XICW, which I love. It's my home. There's a lot of some companies like in Indiana, Infinity Pro, White River Wrestling, Ohio is like War Wrestling. I got to do some Ring of Honor stuff, which is a really big deal for me. I'll be at the Kalamazoo show. It's a TV taping. I got booked on that. I was doing something for Chikara, a couple matches underneath the mask for a little bit. Those are some of the promotions. The biggest one, obviously, Ring of Honor. That's a big deal. So I would love someday to get a look from the WWE. Who wouldn't? I mean, if you're in this business, this sport, why wouldn't you? But those are some of the big places, and I'm hoping, you know, the name gets out there and people realize that this kid's good. Let's give him a shot. You know, that's what I'm wanting.
When you were, you know, training to, you know, become a wrestler, what were some of the things that you learned about cutting promos?
That less is more. I would always, even before I wrestled, I'd always cut a promo. We'd go to like wrestling shows, and we'd wait afterwards to meet the wrestlers. They'd walk out the back, and there's always a rowdy group of people. Everybody's messing around. Well, I would always start cutting a promo. I would do like a Dusty Rhodes impression or a Road Warrior impression or Macho Man. I'd start cutting these promos, and then it would just turn into me cutting a promo. And then I'm always, even when like messing around with buddies, we'd be drunk and I'd cut a promo. So I always had a little leg up going into it that I could talk, you know. And then I learned from people like that would watch your promo or listen to your promo. They like, don't talk so much. Try to get what you're saying in under a minute, because after a while you're going to be saying the same thing just a different way,
right.
And you're going to lose people's interest. Try to get it under a minute. So that's what I try to work on, because I could go all day long, you know. But the promo to me is one of my favorite things. And if no one ever really cuts a promo, I try to cut a promo for every show I do, and I'm hoping one of these days somebody will actually see that and be like, damn, this guy can talk, you know.
Right.
And to me, if you can't talk, you should be able to talk. You could put me on TV. I have the most confidence that you can put me on Monday night right now, hand me a microphone, and I'll handle business. I just got to get that shot. That's all it is.
Was there anybody in the wrestling business, you know, thus far who's, you know, really been influential to you, who's given you some really good advice?
There's so many people, so many guys that have given me tips. A lot of the guys like Nate Matson, Kid Hybrid, the Scarbonis, Truth Martini, my own trainer Xavier Justice, they've given me a lot of tips. going on road trips with Rhino, Sanjay Dutt actually, I had a couple matches with him, and he'll pull me aside and talk to me. Going to the Ring of Honor camps, listening to what these guys say. Some guys will actually, will give you the time of day and actually talk to you and give you a lot of good advice. There's a lot of guys, man. I take that stuff to heart. Like, if someone takes the time out to watch my match and pick it apart, that means a lot to me.
Right.
And those are just a few of the guys that have given me a lot of attention and appreciation, and that's a big deal to me. So I want to learn. I want to get better.
Right, yeah, some of the best ideas that's ever happened in pro wrestling has been on those road trips.
Yes. Yeah, you learn a lot of lessons on the road trips. That's one of the, if you want to get, they always say, if you want to get over with the boys, a lot of times you do it by hanging out with the boys. You know what I mean? You do it by hanging out after shows and stuff. I got booked for a Canada show one time. I went to a show in Ohio, didn't get booked on it, hung out with one of the main promoters in Canada, and we just hung out, drank, sang karaoke, and next thing you know, he's like, hey, he's with he told the Scarbone, he's like, hey, bring that kid that was with you guys, that dude that was with you guys. I thought he was really cool. We'll put him on the show. And that was, you got to be you. You got to have fun and hang out, and you can't be a dick, Having an ego is one thing, knowing you're good is another. Being a complete asshole and not listening to what your peers tell you, that will, a lot of times that'll get you heat. You don't want that.
Who have been some of your favorite opponents thus far?
Oh, man. Keith Cream, right off the bat. I've got a chance to work with him. That's another guy that's influential. He doesn't really wrestle anymore, but he was so much fun to work with. Kid Hybrid, the Painkillers, Jake Something is one half of well, he was. They're not really a thing anymore, but I love working with those guys. I enjoy wrestling Nate Matson, the Scarbonis. Wrestling against them is fantastic. Got to wrestle Rhino a couple times. That was really fun. So easy, I'm hoping to have another one-on-one match with Sanjay someday. He's really good, and I've grown since the last time him and I stepped in the ring. So I'd love to take it to him. But as far as the best guys, it was funny we were just talking about this. Jake Something, we just feed off each other. Kid Hybrid, Keith Cream, some of my best matches with those guys.
We were kind of talking about this earlier, how just kind of the skill and athleticism of in these independent organizations has really grown. These days, it seems like maybe in the past year or so, a lot of those same companies, whether they have usual 100 people or 6,000 people, have just grown in such popularity. While at the same time, WWE's Raw ratings are the lowest they've been in years. Why do you think there's such a popularity with these independents now?
I can't speak for WWE. I don't know the inner workings or anything like that, so I can't talk bad about them. I think for the indies though, it's something fresh. It started with the cruiserweights. I would always watch WCW for their cruiserweights. I love the big stars they had on there, but the best matches were always Malenko, Benoit, Guerrero, Jericho. You know what I mean? Those were always the best matches. I think TNA, when TNA first started, and they introduced us to guys like Low Key, AJ Styles, the X Division stuff.
Oh, the X Division pretty much
fantastic.
Held that company together
for
so long.
It did. And I think now you have Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor was vital in that. You see these guys, and they let them do what they want, and they let them go, and they're good at what they do. And they're bringing something different. Now, I think sometimes people think WWE, it's it's the same stuff, it's this, it's that. You hear the complaints. Right. I think it's good. Seth Rollins, I remember I met him. I was supposed to work with him, wrestle him in a show in Kalkaska before he got really big. Yeah. I was down in one of my first shows in Indiana. I was down at, and Dean Ambrose was down there, and John Moxley. And so I think these guys, it's good that these guys are at the forefront. People don't realize that. It's something new. But I think a lot of times the indies do well. It's because it's this weird hybrid style. It's cruiserweight times 10, mixed with just crazy athleticism, and people are starting to find out who they are with character-wise. They're not just out there doing moves. You have these characters. So it's the psychology of how pro wrestling, a good storyline, and then you have the athleticism, and it's mixing together, and that is something new and fresh, and fans are starting to gravitate towards that.
Right.
It's still not there, because I don't know how many times I see people talking about, oh man, wrestling, blah, 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 blah. And I'll talk to them like, hey, you guys should come to this show. And they're like, oh, well, we don't watch indies. I'm thinking, why not? You guys are talking about how awesome you want them to push Seth Rollins and Kevin Steen. I said, all these guys were where I was years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why don't you support the people that are in your own state? You know, that's... And you're going to find something new and fresh that you've never seen before, and you're going to enjoy it.
And the thing is, with all these independent organizations, they're all, like, unique in their own way. Like, if you watch Chikara Pro...
Oh, yeah.
They're really, like, fun.
Yes.
They have this really fun aspect to it where it's not corny, but it's just fun. And you just go to it, you're like, wow. Like,
yeah. Wrestling's like a magic trick, you know? And it's, you go trying to figure out the magic trick sometimes, but you go to enjoy the show. That's what wrestling is, man. If you know the score, you go to enjoy the show, you're going to enjoy the show. No matter whether it's Chikara Pro, Lucha Underground, XICW, you know, anything of that nature, you're going to find something different. And there's so many independent promotions, but only a few stand out. It's because they're giving the people something different. That's what you have to do.
I know we touched on it before, like, but what are your hopes for the future for what you're doing?
Not to sound egotistical or nothing like that, you know, I don't care what promotion you put me in. I believe I can excel. Okay. These guys just got to give me the ball and let me run with it. I've had a couple touches at Ring of Honor. I'm hoping one of these days they'll be like, you know what, we've seen enough. Let's just bring you on. You know, we know you're good. They know I can cut a promo. They know I can go out there in the ring and work. I know who I am. I have charisma dripping out of every freaking pore on my body.
Right.
And then I'm sure WWE has no idea who I am, but I would love to get some type of tryout match or look so they can see who I am and be like, okay, this guy's cool, you know, he's got a good look to him, he's ethnic, he can talk, he can work, let's see what he can do. All I need is a shot, and that's it. Yeah, I'll do the rest. You put the ball on my court, I'll do the rest. The only thing is, it's so hard just getting that. And if you don't know somebody, or you just happen to be in the right place at the right time, some guys just don't want to vouch for you. It's once I get my shot, I'll go with it, and that's all I want. If I fail, it's on me. But just give me the shot to be in one of the big leagues, and I'll do fine. I have the utmost confidence. That's what I want. Just give me a shot, and I'll do fine. You know.
From either a wrestling standpoint or promo standpoint or just your look, you know, how much of that is like you as a person, whether it's just your personality or your ethnicity or whatever, how much of that is you?
It's me times 10. You know what I mean? If you catch me drunk one night, I'll be wilding up, you know, and that's me. It's me when I'm here talking shit to everybody. It's me taking my frustrations, you know, is what it is. Letting loose, being in a different world. That's me. You know, you're gonna get me out there. I'm an intense individual. I work hard and I want to win at whatever I'm doing. I'm competitive. I could be playing a video game or I could be out in the ring. I want to be better than the next guy. If somebody's following me, well, I want them to have to follow me and bring it. So, yeah, that's what I want to do. So, no, that's me times 10, man. It's the real deal.
I always look at it as wrestling as like an art form, just like any other art form, like a traveling theater, you know.
Yep.
And you know, art always kind of imitates life, you know. How does wrestling sort of mirror what your everyday person goes through on an everyday basis?
That's a good question, man. Damn. It's a struggle. You know, life's a struggle. Being in the ring is a struggle. In professional wrestling, whether it's you are trying to get noticed by somebody important, or whether you're trying to put on the best match, or whether you're just trying to work on your character, or whatever it is, it's a struggle. And just like, you know, life, you have problems, and you have to learn how to overcome these problems, and you have to work on overcoming these problems. You have to have a game plan to overcome these problems. If I go out there and my drop kick sucks, and I want my drop kick to be better, well, I have to keep on working on it, and dissect it. If I have problems saving money to pay that consumer's bill, well, what the hell am I doing? I have to look back, look at it, dissect it, and come up with a plan to make that drop kick, or I'm not a drop kick, but make that money work so I can pay that consumer's bill. It's like that, man. It's a constant struggle. Like, I feel, how how can I put this? I feel like I'm good at what I do, you know, and my man's good at what he does, but he may have something, he may stand out a little more than I do. Maybe he's taller, maybe he's bigger, and he's going to get that job interview before I get that job interview. Yeah. And I'm like, well, shit, how do I got to stand out from this guy so I can get this job interview, so I can get the job over him? You know, he's my boy, but besides undercutting him, what do I have to do that? It's the same thing in real life. Like, okay, here's this guy next to me. He has a degree in this, he has a degree in that, but I have experience in this. I'm more outgoing, but he looks better on paper. What's going to make me stand out over him? And it's the same way, man. That's a good question, though. It made me think.
And even from, like, when you just dive into the whole storyline aspect of wrestling, when it comes down to it, it's always like good versus evil, you know.
Yeah,
this guy versus it's a competitive thing, you know. How does that relate to what, you know, people deal with in real life?
Dude, Dusty Rhodes did it best. Common man, blue collar man, but Dusty was like your next door neighbor. The Four Horsemen were like the rich guys down the street that had the Mercedes-Benz that were dicks to everybody. That's the best way to describe that right there. Dusty was, you could relate to Dusty Rhodes. If you go out there, when I go out there, a perfect example, Jake something, black tights, black boots, scruffy beard, you know what I mean? Doesn't come across as, he doesn't try to be over the top.
Right.
Hakim Zane, fancy looking tights, fancy ring jacket, loud and arrogant, tries to make sure everyone knows he's talking, but you know, even if no one's listening, he's still gonna be running his mouth. That's who do you relate to? Do you relate to the guy that has the bravado, the swagger, you know, the machismo, or do you relate to the guy that's a common man that just wants to go out there and pound some heads? That's the good and evil of it right there. The competitiveness is that even though Hakim Zane is the sun and Jake something is the moon, they both have the same goal, and that is to be better than anybody else. It's your Vegeta, it's your Goku. This sawed-off runt who's angry, who wants to be the man, and this guy that trains hard and does what's right in life and is the man, you know what I mean? And they both want to be the best. That's your competitive nature, and it mixes in, and when you mix it right, it tells the greatest story ever. Rock and Austin, one of my favorite feuds. They're so opposite, but man, when they get together, it is one of the most exciting things, whether they're talking promos, cut promos on each other in the ring, or just the standing and staring at each other. You know something big is going to happen because they did it right, and they click so well. And once you get that in wrestling, it's money, and it's a story, and it's great history, and that's what we all work towards to doing there, man.
Right. Yeah, just kind of closing out this interview. Who is somebody out there that you want to be in the ring with? Who's like your just dream match?
Oh my gosh, that is so tough. I would have loved to have a chance to work with like a Guerrero, you know, Benoit, guys like that. Those are guys that influenced me a lot. I don't know if I have a dream match. You know, I guess one of my dream matches maybe wouldn't be to work with someone that's... I guess, you know, John Cena, he's like the top dog in professional wrestling, so I would love to be in the ring with him and pick his brain.
Right.
But I think my dream match would be something like myself, Jake something on NXT or WWE. You know, if we ever made it that far. And just the history, because we grew up, you know, not together, but we came up in this profession together.
Yeah.
So I would that would be my dream match. Us two, good friends, better enemies, to be at the biggest stage of them all, and I think that would be it. We recently had a match at Ring of Honor, and it was so funny because we go from wrestling in a backyard to getting trained to being on a pretty big stage in Ring of Honor. It was a pretty big moment for us. So I would like to take it even further, though.
Yeah, some of the greatest like rivalries in wrestling. Some of the greatest matches are between guys that just, in real life, they're just friends.
Yeah. So
they know there's a good chemistry. You know, talk about like just, you know, what it's like to have great chemistry with somebody.
You know right away. Owen Travers is another guy I had great chemistry with. You get in the ring, and the moment you lock up, you just click. It's just something you can't really explain it. You just feel it. And everything you do, move for move, hold for hold, it's like water in the ring. And Jake and I, we just, even I've had good friends, and the matches aren't that good. Like TD, my old tag partner, him and I, we had a couple matches and they just weren't that good, not as good as I hoped it would have been.
Right.
We were really good friends, and sometimes it just doesn't click. And sometimes you go in there and people you don't like, there's guys I don't like, outside the ring. I won't name names, but you get in the ring with them, and sometimes that's even better because you guys are both professionals and you click. Yeah. And you both are just going at it, and it's intense, and it's really good. That's also something different. I think it's just something that happens, man. It just is. You guys both, the stars are aligned, and you just have something that's there, and you guys just work. You flow off each other.
How long after you started, just getting in the ring, did the whole psychology of it all just start to click with you?
It really wasn't until last year. I've been doing this for almost 7 years now. It wasn't until last year that I felt really comfortable being in the ring. It's cool, though, because I'll wrestle guys that are younger than me that are really good, and I will structure everything, and it turns out great. And I look at it, I'm like, man, I did that. Like, it's okay, now I'm starting to get it. And it really wasn't until last year that came along. You can do moves all you want and have a perfect moonsault, but if you don't know when to put it in the match or, when to execute this, that, or the other, it doesn't matter. It's not going to get that apex from the crowd, and that's what you want. And the only way you do that is from experience and knowing when to do something, how to do something, learning that psychology. And it didn't, for me, it wasn't until like last year.
If you notice some things aren't working and towards the crowd reaction, what do you do to kind of change things up?
Gotta change it up on the fly, man. Gotta change it up on the fly. Those are the best kind of guys that can go out there, not have to worry about what is structured, and you just work. And you feed off the crowd, and that's something I actually enjoy doing. I love going out there and having a barn burner of a match, having a great match with tons of counters and all this stuff. But when you just go out there and you just work, and the crowd's there, that's such a great feeling. You have to know how to do that, how to change it up on the fly. You have to. If not, you're going to be stuck, and it's not going to go over that well.
Right. All right, man. Yeah, thanks for taking time, talk with me for
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I love this stuff, man. I love it. Right. We need to talk more hip hop next time, because you're gonna have to send me what's hot right now, man. I heard Mos Def, he just put something out recently, and that was okay. I want Mos Def to come back, man. I love me some Mos.
There's still like the label that the Razkaz and Apollo Brown album came out, Mellow Music Group.
Yeah.
Everything they do, pretty much,
really
is fantastic.
Okay.
And they've really, first off, they have a knack of, just like with Razkaz, kind of reinvigorating like older rappers' careers.
Yeah.
But then they just have all these other projects too that are since forever, there's always been like that one hip-hop label that kind of invigorates the underground,
Yeah.
You used to have Raucous Records.
Yeah, Raucous Records.
Def Jux, stuff like that. Right now, Mellow Music Group is like that label. My friend Finale, he's from Detroit.
Uh-huh.
He just put out an album called Odds and Ends.
Uh-huh.
With it's produced entirely by Odyssey. Are you familiar with Odyssey?
I'll definitely get familiar with Odyssey, though.
Yeah, he's from like the DC area.
Okay.
And he's put out a bunch of stuff too over the years. Like, he's really hot on the. He's like on a freaking like 50 date like worldwide tour right now.
See, I love that stuff, man. I love like when Little Brother and Ninth first came out, and Binary Star and cats like that. Like when they were first coming out, it was so
I know
hot.
the Binary Star cats.
Yeah,
like I know Low. He's like. One Man Army from the group, One Below.
Yep.
Like, he was one of the first guys to really kind of embrace me when I entered the hip hop scene.
Really?
And this is when I'm like 19 years old and stuff. And he was always like that. He's always like such a good dude like that,
Right.
And he's still doing his thing right now. And he's doing stuff in Pontiac now. He's back around here.
Really?
You never know where that guy's at, you know?
See, I love stuff like that, man. It feels like this Mellow Music, man. I just love hungry music. You know what I mean? Because that's when you get the heart, soul, and the passion, and it sounds the best. Because they want it. I love it.
Have you heard the stuff that Fonte from Little Brother's been doing now with Foreign Exchange?
No. I heard some of his his last stuff they did. I haven't heard any of the new stuff.
Yeah, he's like after Little Brother just went away. He linked up with this European producer Nikolay. And Nikolay has he's moved to North Carolina now. That's where Little Brother's from. And they started this collective called Foreign Exchange. At first, it was just them two, and they just traded music on OK Player's message board.
Okay.
But now they're a full band, and it's gone away from hip hop stuff to soul music.
Oh
and,
man.
Oh my! Their live shows are so amazing. And then they put out other artists and stuff, and the members of the band put out solo projects, and they have such an amazing indie following now, and they do it all by themselves.
I love the live band stuff. Was it Black Milk album of the year?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
See, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah,
Loved it.
Black's a good friend of mine too.
Really, dude. Hot stuff, dude. Hot
and
stuff.
His live band performance is the best in hip hop right now.
Is it?
I feel.
Dude.
His
that
band
album
is so.
Oh man.
And
so
he just
good.
keeps on getting better with it, His newer albums are ridiculous too.
Really?
Since album of the year, man.
Okay.
And his band is so ridiculous. You'll listen to it and they'll go into this thing that sounds like some Prince stuff. And,
Really?
And go into some other stuff. They go into the musicmanship is amazing, and it's unlike anything else in hip hop these days.
You'll have to send me all that stuff.
And
dude.
it's still Black is still very much slept on when it comes to his music and his live shows.
See?
Yep.
That's a shame
crazy.
too. Guys like that should be on that next level. Guys like that should be winning the awards. And I mean, I know that stuff doesn't really matter, but they should be getting the attention they deserve. And that's indie wrestling's the same way.
Yeah, it is. And I always kind of compare rap music on the mainstream to wrestling. Because it is so kayfabe.
Yeah, it is, dude. It's so bad. It's that stuff. I tried. Somebody was like, "Oh, check this dude out." I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna be the old man and I don't want to listen to any of this new stuff, But sometimes I listen to it. I'm like, the whole I'm dying, dude. Dying. I can't do it. Maybe I'm just an old guy now, but I can't do it.
The best thing that one of those last award shows when Nicki Minaj says something to Miley Cyrus.
Oh God.
The best tweet I ever saw was if you thought that was real, you obviously didn't watch any wrestling as a kid.
Yeah. Seriously, man. God. Well, thanks for having me on, dude. I appreciate it. I love doing stuff like this. I could talk. Obviously, I'm talking so much. I could talk all day, dude. I love it.
Right.
I absolutely love it, man. I appreciate it.
So that was the interview with Hakim Zane. Really had a good time kicking it with him, chopping it about hip hop and shit. If you want to support the podcast, you can always, make sure you just spread the word. The website is freshasthepodcast.com, and you can check us out on the social medias at freshastheword1. That's freshastheword1 on Instagram and Twitter. On Facebook, we're at facebook.com/freshasthepodcast. If you also want to support the podcast in other ways, if you go to freshasthepodcast.com, there's a link at the top that says support the podcast, and there's a PayPal link you can use. Or if you shop on Amazon, you can use the link that I have on the website. Just use that anytime you want to purchase something, and a little bit of commission comes my way. It doesn't cost you any more, but it does help out the show. So please stay tuned. We have a lot of cool segments coming up, a lot of cool guests coming up on future episodes. We're now on Stitcher Radio and on iTunes, so go ahead and search Fresh as the Word on those, and you can listen to us and subscribe on those platforms. So that's it for this episode of Fresh as the Word. See you soon.
Fresh is the word.